Welcome to the Kid Men Podcast with Dr. Val and Dr. Virginia, where we talk about everything kid men.
And pull back the curtain on some of the surprises and challenges in children's ministry that nobody prepares you for.
I'm Dr. Val, and together we have over 45 years of experience in children's ministry.
I'm Dr. Virginia. Valerie and I met over 10 years ago in our doctoral program at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. We are excited to share with you all the great stuff that we have picked up over the years. We want to minister to you, the children's minister.
Welcome, friends. We are so excited that you chose to join us today. We have a really exciting episode for you.
So we shared with you an episode last week that was the beginning of our conversation with David Reneau, who is a longtime children's ministry leader. He has a great blog about children's ministry, about leaving well. So if you haven't checked out that first episode, definitely go start there, because this is the continuation of our conversation with him. We just felt like our whole conversation was so great, and we wanted to make sure and include it all for you. So we have split that conversation across 2 episodes. And this is part 2, the second half of our conversation with David Reneau. Let's think. So in thinking about looking ahead, how do we prepare from the outset or from today to eventually leave well? So we're not looking at leaving next week, but what are some of the things that we can put in place from the get-go to leave well eventually?
There's this concept, this idea is that you want to work yourself out of a job. And the fear of working yourself out of a job is that if I work myself out of a job, I'm never going to have anything to do. And that's not true. And by your laughter, you agree with me. That is just because what happens is as you give away things, now you just have different things to do. And it's bigger things that you're managing as opposed to just working on the street, working on the thing. So what you need to do is you need to go ahead and start building a leadership team and start giving them responsibility, have conversations with them about your curriculum decisions and why you're making these decisions. Let them have a say in those decisions. When you're having your calendar meeting, you have a meeting with them with the calendar beforehand where you talk about what your decisions are. And if they lead a particular ministry in your church, like Awanas or Rural Rangers or something like that, let them okay, we're going to talk about how we plan out this calendar and then talk about the budget. Let's sit down and let's talk about the budget for your ministry and where are these decisions making? How are these all things? And all this is helping is preparing them for the time when you are no longer going to be there. Because there is going to be a gap between when you're gone and the next person comes in, whether it's 6 days, 6 months, or heaven forbid, 6 years.
I've seen years happen between, so it happens.
It's rough. It's rough, and it's that long. I did 6 months, and that was hard. So you want to prepare those people. The way I like the philosophy to think about it is that it's not my job as the pastor to do the work of the ministry. My job as the pastor is to train the laity to do the work of the ministry. Amen. And so that's what I'm training my people to do. I'm training them to do the work of the ministry. And so one of the other things I did while I was having these conversations with them and training with them, I would talk to them about there's going to be a day when I'm no longer going to be here. And I just had that conversation with just my top leader team. I'm not having that conversation with all the volunteers. I'm not having that conversation with the kids. I'm just talking this is our lead team meeting. This is where we're talking about this. And I just say it offhand. There's going to come a time where I'm not going to be here. And they're like, no, you're going to be here forever. We love you. And it was like, ego stroke. It's great. But also it gets them familiar and gets them awake to the idea and comfortable with the idea that there's going to come a time where you are no longer going to be there. And so that when the time comes, they are prepared for you not to be there, and they can pick up the ball and run with it. And okay, we can go ahead and do this. That's really, again, how you leave determines your legacy. So if in that space in between, if they are we have everything we need, we know exactly what we're doing, we can do this, and the ministry continues on and even grows in your absence, fabulous.
Right. Amen.
But if the ministry becomes a train wreck because they can't find anything, they don't know where anything is. Nobody knows how to do anything because it was the David Reneau show and everyone was there to see you do your song and dance. And now you got to ask them to get up there and lead worship and tell the Bible story and do the small group. And they're like, what? How do I? And now you're asking these people to step up and not just like, they don't even get training. You're just thrown in there with a book with the door closed and say, good luck. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom in what you're saying, because our pride wants us to think that the ministry can't survive without us. And we want to have that sense of, I want them to care that I'm there, and I want them to need me, and I want them to rely on me, and I want to be the person that can do everything. And we just really have to step back and say, what makes a good leader is not that. What makes a good leader is preparing your people to be able to step up and do the work, and for it to be seamless when you walk away. That means that you have done a successful job. And so, but it's hard for us to kind of process that sometimes.
It is. And sometimes this may be true for you. It hasn't been true for me at every church I've been in, but this may be true for you. Your successor may already be in your ministry. And if you have your eyes open and are praying for who is going to succeed you, God may show you that person. And then you can talk with them years before you're gone and start saying, hey, I think you can do what I do. Let's talk about this, and start bringing them in on the circle of like, here's how I really do things, and really just train that person. And so like that church I talk about, this church I've been talking about where I really did this, and I wrote the Leaving Well blog post I talked about, that successor, I've been gone for 5 years. She's still there and still doing the work and still doing incredible things there. So, I mean, like,
That's awesome.
That is what we want to see happen. Because the churches talk about all the time when they talk about hiring, they say it's always better to hire from within. Well, you're the pastor. How do you think those people get there? How do you think they hire from within? You train them.
You get them there.
Yeah. Sometimes you're gifted. Like the church I went to after that, I had 3 former children's pastors working for me. And I was like, this is amazing. And so when I left, it was like, okay, here's the team. Here's the three people that are just going to run for it. But like, that doesn't happen.
That's not the norm.
That's not the norm. I was blessed beyond measure on there. And I am thankful for the Lord, for them, and for those ladies, and how much they brought to the ministry and how they continue to even run the ball, that I'm not there, and I haven't been there in 2 years.
Right. Well, and I love that attitude too, to look at, be like, I have 3 former children's pastors, and to be like, that's amazing. Because again, when it comes, like, if we are in our own insecurities, there could be a temptation to be like, oh no, like, I feel threatened. But no, like, we want strong people in our ministry. Like, we want those people who already have experience and who have knowledge to come and contribute and strengthen our ministry. And so just that attitude of like, oh, this is amazing. Like, that's such a great attitude and perspective for us to have, and that we want to have in working with, talented people. So
I think that's a growth for leaders. That is a step between becoming just a doer and becoming a leader, of becoming like what John Maxwell calls the next level leader, like from a level 2 leader to a level 3 leader, of being able to put your pride aside and say, you can do this. Even though they only do it 60, 70, 80% as well as you do, that's okay. You're doing it. And eventually they're going to get better at it. And but if you just hold all of it to yourself, and I have been so guilty of this, holding it all to yourself, then like, they're never going to grow. And then what's probably going to happen is that they're going to leave, and you'll never attract top level leaders into your ministry. And then you're just surrounded by all these followers who are just like, they're just coming to you. What do we need to do? What do we need to do? And then like, they're not self-solvers. They're not solving the problems. They're not owning the thing, because you own it all and you didn't give them the responsibility.
Well, let's talk about the other side of the coin as well. So the announcement's been made to the congregation. Everybody knows that it's time for your departure. what do we do in that last week or two that we're at a church when we are maybe in like the lame duck season?
Yeah.
How can we still use that time well?
This is so important because every church I've been to, I have wished that the pastor was as intentional with leaving the stuff. That this last church I went in and there was zero historical data. I didn't have mailing lists. I didn't have usernames. I didn't have passwords. I had nothing. And I was like, okay, we're going to do a VBS. And it's like, all right, let's invite the other people. We don't have that list. Well, where is that list? I don't know. And it's like, oh, here's this graphic. I'm going to make the thing. Here's our logo. And it's like, okay, I'm going to make a flyer with our logo on it. Where's this logo? Well, I don't know where that is. I don't know who made it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
That happens so much more than you think that it does, because I have walked in to a church before where literally the office was completely empty.
Yeah.
There was nothing. And the previous children's minister was so upset. She literally took all the passwords to everything with her and wouldn't give them to anybody. So we literally couldn't even get into like our Facebook page or any of that kind of stuff was totally gone. So when you walk in and it's like that, it's just so overwhelming because you're starting from scratch with people who are used to a system that you have no access to.
Right.
Yeah.
And others like, well, this is how we did it. And you're like, I have no idea. What are you even talking about?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to go get you one of these. Okay. This is a 4 terabyte external hard drive. Okay. This is a travel one.
You know, what's funny?
I bought so many. I bought 3 of these in my life.
I have one right here.
There you go.
Back here.
These things are like awesome. Okay. So I have an even bigger one I can't grab. It's over on my desk here. That's like, if you push it over, the disk will drive and disk will break and everything dies. You don't want to do that. But that's a portable one. So it can take some punishment. You get one of those things and take literally everything that you have done. I am not a physical hoarder, but I am a digital hoarder. I have emails from 2005. Okay. I got it. I kept everything. And take everything you have and put it on that drive. And then this is a little bit of a technical thing. Okay. If you're a Mac user or if you're a Windows, it doesn't matter what Mac user, Windows user, talk to your tech guy. He can tell you how to do it. There's a way to format that drive to be able to use on either computer. Okay. Because my predecessor in Sarasota, he was a Mac user. I'm a Windows guy. He took everything and put it on an external hard drive for me. And I was like, great. But he did it from his Mac and it was formatted for Mac. I couldn't use it. I had to go to another pastor who had a Mac and be like, hey, can you take all this information, these 15 gigs, and take it and put it on this little big flash drive for me so I could see the stuff that you have. So take all your stuff, take your videos, take your service schedules, take your volunteer schedules, take your contact information, take every single piece of graphics and everything that you have created and put it in a nice, neat little package. If it's digital, put it on the external hard drive. If it's physical, put it out there. And so really that's what you're doing in the last week. You are preparing for if someone was to pick up tomorrow with what you have, they can just pick up and go with your system. Now, the next person come in, they're going to come in with their own system and their own ideas of how to do things, and they're going to change things, and you're going to have to be okay with that because you're not there anyway. But what you want to do is you want to give them all the resources that they need so that they can just pick it up and move on with it. So the other thing I've done, talk about all those passwords, is that I create a sheet of, it's a PDF, and I go through and say, website, username, password, cost. Here's what credit card it's on. And then just do. And then I take that and I give it to the church administrator and say, here, this is everything that we pay for. This is the username. This is the password. This is all of it. Because if you go to a small church, you wear multiple hats. So it's not just children's ministry. You got all these things. So like, here's this sheet. And then you keep a copy. Because what's going to happen is 6 months from now, they're going to call you and be like, hey, can you log in?
Yes.
And so you're like, oh yeah. And you just, you pull it up. Here's the password. I literally, no lie, about 3 months ago, I had them call me. And it's like, I had them call me from my church in Montgomery. I haven't been there in 5 years. They call me. It's like, hey, we can't get into the iPad that you use for your cafe. Do you know the password for this iPad? And I'm like, Give a shot. I pulled up that document. I'm a hoarder. I pulled out that document and said, okay, it's either this, or this. And it was like, none of those work. Like, you're up a creek, man. Y'all changed that faster. You didn't tell me about it. So here you go.
Yeah.
And so many things happen because I did the same thing where I gave the administrator one time when I was leaving, and I gave the administrator everything. And I literally didn't keep anything. I wasn't thinking, we were moving and I wasn't thinking. And I said, well, I gave her everything. She has everything she's going to need. And then it was maybe about 3 weeks later, they called and said, the administrator lost, the stuff that you gave her. Do you have, and I was like, oh no, because I didn't think I was ever going to need it again. And so it's always good to have that extra just to keep it for a little while. So just in case you get that call, you can be helpful and not have to say, that's
why you buy 4 terabyte. And I spent $100 on this 4 terabyte hard drive. You can go to Sam's and you can get an 8 terabyte for the same price. Okay. So get the, go get the bigger one. Yeah.
I've done that ever since.
I know it's funny. I just got a case for mine because I'm like, I've got 2 laptops worth of stuff on here. Like I've got to protect it.
I told my wife I need to get a bigger one because that thing mine has 3 laptops on it. It's got 15 years worth of data on there. I was like, if that thing died, we would.
Yes.
Because it's not just church stuff. I got a whole bunch of personal stuff on there too. It's like, if this died, we would be in so much trouble. We gotta do that. So you want to create all that stuff, do the list. If you have a successor, meet with them and talk with them about your system, because there are things, even though you may have been training them, and even if it's not a successor that's going to pick it up and run it the whole time, there's going to have to be a top level volunteer, another staff member that is Sunday's coming.
Right.
Somebody's going to have to be in there in kids church on Sunday. Have a meeting with that person, sit with them as long as they're able, and talk them through your system and give them access to all the stuff. And so that they can keep the ball rolling for as long as it needs to be, had, and make yourself available. When I left Sarasota, I did an 80-hour work week. I worked so late, and because I was pulling in all the stuff. I had finally convinced the administrator to do the tech overhaul in the sound booth. And so I was there helping the guys do all the wiring and all that stuff, but then, just transferring all the things, preparing them to be successful. For that time. And then even I had the privilege at my last church, at the church when I left Sarasota, when the new children's pastor came in, they called me they gave him my number to call me. And so we had conversations about the church and what to expect. And so we talked about that. And you always want to be honor, even if you're leaving on bad terms, be honoring of the church. And so to honor him, and then we had that conversation going into that. And then even I was texting him the week of, hey man, praying for you. And so we had a relationship so that he was able to start so much better, even though he came in months after me, because here's the hard drive with all the stuff. And then I'm here, you have my phone number. We've had conversations of here's how to move on to there. And just to go back to the part where I said honor your people, that's what you're doing in the office during the week, on Sundays and at nights. What you're doing is you're meeting with your leaders, you're meeting with people who've invested in you, invested in your family, invested in your ministry. You're meeting with those, you're going to dinner with those people, you're saying your goodbyes, and you're talking to the staff and talking about this thing, but you're always honoring of what's happened. Even if you're leaving on horrific terms, there's something good that happened there.
Amen.
Talk about that. And that's because that is the story that people are going to tell. Because when you leave, people are going to ask the question, why did they leave? And they're going to say most likely the thing that they heard last. And so you're going to want to talk about, these are the good things that happened. This is the good reason why I'm leaving, and talk about it.
And we'll talk the next 2 questions kind of about 2 opposite sides of sort of the same coin. Is what if you're staying in that church? What if you're just stepping down from a position, but you're staying? And kind of more like what we've been talking about throughout this episode, what if you are going somewhere else? So what are some of the considerations if you're staying in the congregation?
This one I can't speak to specifically because I've never done this, but I can just some best practices from what I've gleaned from other places, especially when like top level leaders step away, is that you need to be prepared to be uncomfortable with the changes. That they are gonna do stuff that you are not gonna like, and you can't say anything because you're not the leader anymore. You got to step away. We were talking about all this data. I remember I was in master's commission in college. It's kind of like a ministry tech school. And so that's what it is. So when I left my third year, I was in charge of all the education. So I took all the education, I put it on a CD because external hard drives didn't exist. It was a CD and it had all the stuff on it. And then I came back to visit about 6 months into the new year, and they had lost the CD, and they weren't. And I had worked so hard on developing this educational system that they could use for years, and they weren't doing any of it. And I was hurt and frustrated and angry. And I actually went back. That was the church that I went and became kids pastor in 2 years later. And I found that disc in a drawer. I was like, oh, here it is. Because I had lost the data. So I was like, oh, there it is. I got it. And so I pulled it in. But like, you gotta be okay to step back. When you're going to step away, you probably need to take a break. You cannot volunteer in that ministry for at least 6 months, at least, and maybe even like a year or two. Go find somewhere else where you can serve. You've been serving every single week anyway, most likely, and so take some time to refresh and renew. When I left my last church, I took a whole month off, and I can tell you, like, when I sat in that service for the first time, and I wasn't in charge of anything. And like, I hadn't felt this way since college. It was so refreshing and renewing because like, I'm not like worried about how my volunteers are doing over in the kids ministry area. I'm not worried about if the sound is sounding okay. I'm not worried about what's on the screen. I'm just there just to worship and just to take in the sermon. And like, there is so much refreshing and renewing in that. So rest and live in that first. And then before you just jump into your next place, because what's going to happen is that you're going to start feeling like useless and like you're just twiddling your thumbs. And it's like, well, like there may be some refreshing and renewing that the Lord needs to do in your heart before you're ready to go on to the next thing that he's called you to.
It's a whole lot harder to be a church member when you've been a church staff member than you expect it to be. It has been a tough transition for me. It is that very odd feeling. You have to allow yourself that time. But I appreciate what you said too about stepping back, because we have to think about the person that's taking the responsibilities on and how they're feeling. And we don't want them to feel uncomfortable, and we don't want to feel them pressured, and we don't want to be saying negative things to the congregation about the changes that they're making. We want to be supportive because we would want that for ourselves if we were coming in. So I think those it's very great advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I think that you want to, when you're doing that, you want to take that step back and just let them do the thing, be available to them. And then when people come to you with their problems, people that you used to lead, and they're coming to you, and it's like, then you need to defer and not just like, oh, that's interesting, because now you just heard them. It's like, have you talked to the new leader about this? You need to point them to that leader, and that you are that leader's champion. You are their biggest cheerleader, because if you start speaking ill and it's like, I can't believe they're doing this, or even if you're silent and like, okay, then that person has this ammo of like, they agree with me. And so like, you're not the leader anymore. You got to take a step back and let that other person lead.
Amen. So what are some considerations if you are leaving, though? So we've talked about if you're staying. So what are some considerations if you're leaving and you're going somewhere new?
Yeah. So when you're going into a new place, this is a new culture. These are new people. How they do things is different. And you, depending on how long that interview process was, you may not know how much that is. I sat in one interview. I interviewed at one church, and they literally grilled me for 2 solid days, 8 hours a day, multiple groups of people. And it was grueling, and I was exhausted.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they didn't hire me. which hurt.
Oh,
Jeez.
But then there was another church I went to, and they asked me 0 questions. Like, he read my resume, he had already made the decision, you're the guy, and asked me 0. I asked him questions. And then I got that job. Okay, great. So you got this, you run this gamut of like what's in there. But the truth is that you don't know what you're walking into.
right.
And so what you need to do is, after you have accepted the job and you are in that in-between space of leaving and saying goodbye and moving your family and saying hello and meeting those people, then I made this guide. If you subscribe to my blog, you can get the link to it. These are 75 questions that you can ask before you start the church, before you start the new church. And these are questions like, when is staff meeting? How often do we meet? How long is staff meeting? What are we supposed to wear in the office? But then there's other questions like, who is my predecessor? Can I get his phone number? Or did they leave on good terms, or did they leave on bad terms? Who has currently been leading this place? Can I get their phone number? Can I talk to them about what's going on? And those are that's the type of thing. What's your vacation policy? When do the staff pastors take vacation? When does the senior pastor take vacation? What does
It can tell you a lot about the culture of the church.
It really does.
Yeah.
Right. Because the last church I served in, all the staff pastors took vacations in like February, March, but the senior pastor took vacation in July. Well, if I'm planning on
can't do that in Kidman.
A lot of scheduling in Kidman going on in July.
Right. You can't do that. And like February, March is like, that's right before Easter. I can't do that either. And so like, what are the expectations of you? So go ahead and have those conversations about when you show up on that first day, they're going to give you all these forms. Like, you get to fill out your W-4 and your direct deposit, and they're going to, but also ask the questions like, are you going to buy me a computer? Do I need to buy a computer? Yeah. What are the specs of those computer? What is the software I need? What software do you provide? What software do I need that you can provide for me? Have these questions and be prepared to like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And so that when you're starting in, and then when you start in that new church, be very, very hesitant to say, well, this is what we did at my last church. Because you were in a new system and you left that system to come to this system. And so if you're in the new system and you keep telling them this is what we did there, they're going to look at you like, then why are you here? Because if they liked it over there, if you liked it so much over there, you can go back.
Yeah.
And because like, this is the new place. So you're going to be tempted to constantly compare, because our natural tendency is to look for patterns. And so we may just say out loud that we're pattern recognition of like, well, I see y'all are doing this. Yeah, we used to do that over here. That's okay, like once in a while. But if that's a constant thing that you're bringing up, people are going to be like, okay, which church, what are you trying to do here? Which church are you going to be in? And so that's the kind of things that you want to keep in mind as you go in there. When you start at that place, you want to get a couple quick wins really quick. Try to find some struggles that the ministry is going through. Does the check-in area need to be revamped? Can you upgrade can you upgrade the check-in paperwork? Are they suffering for volunteers? Can you bring some of the old volunteers that quit in the interim time? Can you bring them in? Can you increase the team? Find some ways that you can make some quick wins in that first week or two, just so people know. And it's like, okay, this person's in here, they're getting stuff done. And then one of the things I did is I invited over the ministry leader, the one that had been in charge. I invited them over for dinner. And even though I still have boxes in my dining room, where we're sitting down and we're having a meal and we're getting to know each other, because for me, my goal always is that when I started a new place, that in a year, those people who were there are still going to be there. You want to kind of maintain those relationships. Now, I was never 100% on that. There was a lot of times where like I lost a bunch of people lost people through that time, but it was still a goal. And you build that through those relationships and helping them understand that you are not your predecessor. And that you are a different person. And so this is what they brought. This is what you honor of them. And this is what you're bringing to the table now.
Well, and I think it's important to ask people to give you that opportunity, because I had so many churches where when I would come in, the leaders would be like, oh, great, you're here. I can leave now. I'm quitting because I've been, because they were worked to death before.
Yeah.
And so it's me asking them, can you commit to just a little bit longer for me and let me show you how I'm going to make this enjoyable for you again. Like, and find ways that you can, help them to be able to still participate. But I've heard that a lot where people will just say, yeah, I'm done. I can't, because they just have been worked to death in that interim time, especially between.
Yeah. And they feel burnt out. And so you need to honor their time, honor the sacrifice that they've made over the last 6 months, because like you're probably coming in there full time. They've been doing this. They've been working a full-time job and doing this.
Right.
And so, and they've been doing it every week, and they're used to going to service, and they haven't been able to go to service. So there's a lot of those volunteers that I let them take 3-6 months off. And then when they came back, instead of them working every week, they worked once a month.
Right.
And I just appreciated them being there, because there were some times where like, hey, where's this? And then like they disappear in the supply closet and come out with it. And you're like,
how did you do that?
How did you? How did you know?
You have to lift up the ceiling tile. Yeah.
Right. That reminds me that I haven't written about this, but when you leave, clean your supply closet, please. Get that organized, put some labels up. And then when you come into the new area and the other person left a mess for you, clean the area. Go and organize, put your own system, because especially when you're coming into a new place, you don't know what they have.
Right.
And so when you're coming in with your new service, you don't want to spend all this money buying all these new materials when they already have it in the closet. You need to be a good steward of what they already have. And that's why I say clean it out, because you need to go through there and know what your predecessors have purchased before you, and what you can use, and keep that in mind in the future, so that you're not spending. The church has spent a fortune to bring you in. You don't want them to spend even more that they don't have to, because you're double buying stuff.
Right. Because you just don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been awesome. This has been a great conversation. Can you remind us where we can find you on the internet?
Right.
Sure. I am davidreneau.org. That's RENEAU. So if it's like Bureau, like Federal Bureau of Investigation, or Juneau, Alaska. So that's to help you spell it. So you can go there. I'm on all the socials, so you can find me. It's either David Reneau or David E. Reneau. But if you go to my blog, I have all the social links there, so you can come find me and all those stuff. So
and we'll put those links in the notes as well, so they'll be here in the notes.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. And I blog every Friday. So there's a new blog and new thought that's coming out there. I write about KidMin, Next Gen, that being a staff pastor, just those type of things. So a lot of these things that we talked about today, I've written about.
All right. Yeah. Well, David, thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us today. It's been a fun conversation.
It's been a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening in today to our second part of the conversation with David. We really enjoyed chatting with him. It was helpful information for all of us, I think. And so we were just excited to have him along with us. So we just hope that you will like and subscribe if you have not done that already. And we appreciate it if you have. Check us out on all the other social media outlets. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye-bye.